Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. To hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin ******. The enchanting dreamer. He stands at the edge of possibility. Eyes alight with the fervor of 1,000 unwritten stories. Every time he speaks, it is as though he pours wildfire into the room. Grand designs, impossible inventions, world-changing ventures. He gestures with excitement, painting vivid scenes of what could be, casting you as his eager collaborator in each fanciful enterprise. You cannot help but lean in, your heart pounding in rhythm with his rising pitch. And yet, before the first brick is laid, before the ink dries on a single page, he slips away into an unseen obstacle. An ill-fated timing, an uncaring universe. You have known him for years, perhaps as a boy in school who once vowed to cure disease using backyard experiments, or as a college roommate who would scribble blueprints across napkins at midnight. Maybe he is your younger brother, gifted and volatile, opening doors to tomorrow, then disappearing down a corridor of daydreams. Or he could be your partner, passionately promising a new life together, only to vanish when the commitments begin. Maybe even your father fits the mold, a man whose voice still quivers with adolescent wonder. As if he never learned to wear the weight of adulthood at first, his unbridled enthusiasm is intoxicating. You marvel at his capacity for imagination, at how he seemingly plucks wild ideas from thin air and shapes them into something tangible in your mind's eye. He speaks of revolutionary apps, philanthropic expeditions, masterpieces yet to be penned. He describes his vision in glowing terms. One day, we will change everything, he says. Voice rich with conviction. You believe him because belief is the magic he weaves. The room feels larger, the future brighter. Your own aspirations reignited in his presence. But soon, the centrifugal force of his dreams spins so fast that nothing holds. The initial burst of energy dissipates, leaving only an echo of what might have been. You wait for updates, an email, a call, a draft, a prototype, but none arrive. Instead, a text appears. It wasn't the right moment. Later comes another, I need the perfect team. And then, the world doesn't understand this vision yet. Each explanation, delivered with plaintive sincerity, peels away a layer of your faith until you are left doubting your own judgment. You watch him cycle through passions like seasons. One week, he studies philosophy. The next, he trains for an Ironman. The week after that, he attempts to learn Mandarin. He collects certificates like souvenirs, but the studies never culminate in practice. He flits from one pursuit to another, always dazzled by beginnings, never anchored by endings. When you gently ask why he abandoned his last grand plan, his defenses rise. I realized I need something more authentic, or I don't want to settle for half measures. He casts rejection as integrity, absence as principle, stalling. As self-preservation, his excuses wear thin on those closest to him. Friends grow tired of endless pep talks and zero deliverables. Colleagues lose patience with promises of collaboration that remain unfulfilled. Partners feel the sting of soon stretching into months, then years of standing still. You begin to notice a pattern. Wherever he goes, possibilities sprout tanned. Nowhere do they bloom. He keeps alive the hushed hope of something extraordinary, yet never allows himself the discipline to manifest it. The boundary between dream and action blurs until no real progress can be discerned. What underlies this paradox? Carl Jung called it pure etterness, the eternal boy who refuses to grow, perpetually. Suspended between childhood's protections and adulthood's demands. This archetype manifests as a dazzling lightness of Benga charisma that draws others in, a creative pulse that outpaces routine. But it also carries a shadow, an instinctive recoil from commitment, a fear of failure so profound that any risk feels intolerable. The pure sees life as an open canvas, yet flinches from the brushstroke that stakes a claim. In his mind, perfection must precede action. He imagines the flawless moment, the ideal partner, the exact set of circumstances that will guarantee success. Till then, he remains in preparation mode. He remains almost ready. The price of this hesitation is invisible at first, but it accumulates like unpaid debts. Opportunities slip past, relationships fray, talent atrophies. You realize that freedom, in his definition, means an absence of constraint, but real freedom requires responsibility, the willingness to risk imperfection, to confront setbacks, to commit even when the outcome is uncertain. You find yourself exhausted, tired of offering guidance that goes unheeded, worn thin by cheerleading efforts that never take off. You feel guilty for urging him to choose stability, to finish what he starts, to honor the trust you place in his word. Yet his response always circles back, "I'm not ready, I need more time, I must follow my intuition." He frames maturity as betrayal of self, insisting that true genius cannot be shackled by deadlines or plans. And so he drifts, buoyed by sympathy and admiration alike, trapped in a perpetual convalescence of aspiration, watching him. You sense a tragedy unfolding, a life rich in potential, squandered by the inability to embrace ordinary demands. He fears mediocrity so deeply that he refuses to do the diligent, mundane work that underpins every extraordinary achievement. The world he despises, rigid, conformist, limited, mirrors back to him his own unwillingness to face reality. Fleeing structure, he becomes a prisoner of his own fantasies, confined to a cage of starting lines without finish flags. And yet, there remains hope, for within the pure lives, a spark that, if harnessed, can fuel genuine transformation rather than endless stalling. The challenge lies in guiding that spark into a steady flame, transmuting youthful vivacity into focused creativity, transforming vision into tangible progress. It means acknowledging that perfection is a myth, that failure is a teacher, and that the ordinary tasks of life can serve as stepping stones toward extraordinary outcomes. It requires mourning the illusion of an effortless future and embracing the discipline of the present. As you close this chapter of observation, you understand that the real story begins when the pure confronts his fear of adulthood. The journey from endless possibility to concrete realization will be painful and demanding. Kiat. It is the only path from enchanting dreamer to fulfilled creator. The echo of his promises can become a chorus of achievements. He learns to marry his imagination with action. And so, with equal measures of compassion and resolve, you prepare to speak the truths he needs to hear, to challenge him to step into the world he has long admired from afar, and to finally build the extraordinary life he has always envisioned. Jung's eternal boy. He is not merely a daydreamer. He embodies a timeless archetype that Carl Gustav Jung called pure eterness, the eternal boy who never truly grows up. This archetype is woven into myths and legends across cultures. The shining youth who hovers between childhood's innocence and adulthood's responsibilities, forever caught in a state of becoming. In the realm of the psyche, the pure represents vitality, spontaneity, and creativity, an unbound force of possibility. Yet beneath this radiant veneer lurks a paradoxical fear, the fear of anchoring, of making choices that bind him to the present moment. To understand the pure, one must first recognize the archetypal dichotomy between child and adult. In childhood, the world is rich with wonder and free from burdens. The child knows that mistakes will be forgiven, that care follows naturally, and that growth is never forced. Adulthood, by contrast, demands accountability, persistence, and routine. The pure refuses the latter, longing perpetually for the former. He clings to the promise of a tomorrow that glows brighter than any today, forever postponing the hard work of transformation. When he first appears in conversation, it is as a breath of fresh air. His words dance on the wind, carrying with them a sense of adventure and novelty. He speaks of journeys to uncharted territories. Literal or metaphoric land kindles in you a longing for unexplored frontiers. He seems to possess an instinctive ability to dissolve the staleness of everyday life, making dull routines sparkle with potential. His charisma is magnetic, drawing others into his orbit, feeding off their energy to sustain his dreams. Yet this very magnetism conceals his flight. For charismatic though he may be, he remains untethered. He seldom commits to deadlines, contracts, or concrete plans. A proposal that ignites his imagination one week is abandoned the next in favor of a newer fascination. He has no tolerance for the mundane infrastructure that supports achievement, budgets, calendars, to-do lists, perseverance. In his mind, these are shackles, gilded though they may be. And he rejects them outright. The pure expects life to conform to his whims rather than the other way around. He demands inspiration rather than discipline, waiting for a bolt of lightning to strike before he even considers lifting a finger. His definition of right timing hinges on an idealized internal state, not on real-world conditions. He lives in the belief that when the universe truly aligns, the perfect moment will arrive. Until then, he remains in preparation, suspended in a state of readiness that never ripens into action. Jung observed that the pure is often linked with creative brilliance. Many artists, inventors, and visionaries trace their initial spark to a childlike openness to possibility. The pure's gift lies in seeing the world not as it is, but as it could be. Yet this capacity becomes destructive when ungrounded, unmoored. From the discipline required to translate vision into form, his ideas remain ephemeral, dissipating like smoke before they can solidify into reality. The very force that could propel him to greatness instead traps him in perpetual almosts and maybes. His relationship with time is particularly telling. He is always in the when and never in the now. He speaks of future breakthroughs as though they are promises already made, yet scrambles when asked to deliver. He reframes his inaction as strategic patience, waiting for the right catalyst, he says, while avoiding the humdrum tasks that would actually move him forward. In doing so, he sacrifices the only moment he truly owns, the present. The pure's emotional landscape is equally complex. He experiences intense bursts of enthusiasm, followed by deep valleys of disappointment. When an idea captivates him, his joy is boundless. When it falters, his self-worth plummets. He oscillates between elation and despair, never finding equilibrium. This emotional roller coaster makes sustained relationships challenging. Partners, friends, and colleagues ride alongside him in the highs, only to be jolted by abrupt withdrawals when the enthusiasm wanes. They find themselves clutching to memories of his promise, uncertain whether that version of him will ever return. Behind his rejection of responsibility often lies a profound vulnerability, the fear of failure, beneath the bravado of one day. I will change the world is the dread of seeing that world unchanged. He fears that if he stakes his identity on a particular endeavor, and it does not succeed, he will be exposed as unworthy. His self-image is fragile, propped up by the possibility of success rather than the evidence of achievement. Thus, he avoids commitments that might prove him wrong. The less he does, the less he risks sand, the longer he can cling to his self-concept. As a special, chosen individual, Jung described the pure as stuck in the psychic womb, sheltered from the harshness of life, In this sheltered realm, everything is provided. Admiration, encouragement, and forgiveness are abundant. To emerge into adulthood is to enter a world where warmth must be earned, where mistakes carry consequences. The pure resists this emergence, preferring the comfort of guaranteed care. Whether his caretaker is a literal parent, a partner who mother hugs his ego, or a peer group that enables his fantasy, the external support system becomes complicit in his stasis. They shield him from the world, inadvertently prolonging his dependency. Yet the pure also carries a seed of regeneration. In dreams, myths, and fairy tales, the eternal boy often heralds rebirth. He appears at pivotal moments to remind the hero, of wonder to crack open hardened hearts, to infuse stale worlds with youthful magic. When integrated maturely, the pure energizes the individual with creativity and playfulness, tempering the rigidity of the adult ego. The challenge lies in balancing this inner child with the capacities of the adult, combining spontaneity with structure, imagination with execution. The turning point arrives when the pure confronts the limitations of his own strategy. He notices that waiting for inspiration yields nothing but regrets. He experiences the sting of unrealized dreams as a deeper wound than any failure might have been. He sees that perfectionism is paralysis, that endless postponement is a choice of its own kind. In that moment, the archetype shifts from a trap into a guide. He can retain his visionary essence while embracing the tools of maturation discipline. Planning, resilience, does not erase the pure. It transforms him. His creative impulses become directed rather than chaotic. Rather than fleeing at the first sign of difficulty, he develops the fortitude to weather resistance. He learns to dance with deadlines, to view them not as prisons, but as rhythms that give shape to his art. He discovers that authenticity resides not in avoiding constraints, but in choosing which constraints to honor. True freedom, paradoxically, is found in committing to what truly matters, in reframing his relationship with time. The pure learns to inhabit the present. He stops waiting for perfect conditions and begins working with what he has. Each small action becomes a declaration of belief, each completed task a testament to his evolving self. Over time, the accumulation of these acts births a legacy and edifice of real-world impact that stands in contrast to the fleeting brilliance of ungrounded dreams. Thus, Jung's eternal boy, once a symbol of arrested development, emerges as a bridge between realms. He forges a path where imagination and reality meet, where childhood's wonder fuels the endeavors of adulthood. The pure no longer flees from responsibility. He charges toward it, energized by the promise of creation. In doing so, he discovers that growth, though painful, is also life's greatest adventure. And in that adventure lies the true miracle, a man who carries his inner youth not as a shackle, but as a source of enduring vitality. The shadow of escape. At first glance, his lightness seems like a gift. He drifts effortlessly through social circles, enlivening conversations with jokes and spontaneous ideas. He arrives unannounced at your door, brimming with enthusiastic promises. Tonight, you will craft a screenplay. Tomorrow, you will launch a startup. Next week, you will travel the world and chart new territory. His energy feels like a fresh breeze, stirring stale air and awakening dormant desires. Yet beneath this breezy charm lies a more insidious force. His instinctive flight from anything that demands sustained engagement. Over time, the cracks begin to appear. The screenplay remains unwritten. The startup never materializes. The travel. Plans dissolve into vague wishes. You notice he rarely sticks around for the follow-up. He's a master of grand beginnings, but a ghost to completion. If you try to pin him down, where are we with that project? K offers reassurances wrapped in poetic language. I need to honor the creative process, or I don't. Want to force something that isn't ready to flourish? These explanations feel sincere, yet they consistently prevent any real work from being done. This pattern soaring on the winds of potential, then vanishing at the first whisper of stability reveals the shadow side of his archetype. It is not simply an aversion to routine. It is an almost reflexive recoil from responsibility, a primal fear of being tied down. The tasks he avoids are everyday ones: replying to emails, scheduling meetings, showing up on time. These are not feats of heroic proportion, yet to him they are chains that bind the spirit. Better to remain a wanderer on the horizon of possibility than an inhabitant of the here. And now, his avoidance tactics take many subtle forms. He forgets commitments, dinners, calls collaborative sessions only to apologize later with heartfelt regret. He misses deadlines, promising to catch up soon, though soon never arrives. He abandons financial responsibilities, leaving friends and family holding the bills or invoices he neglected to pay. He changes his mind at the last moment, canceling trips or shifting plans, citing sudden revelations of a more authentic direction. Each cancellation is delivered as if it were an act of self-preservation, a refusal to betray his deepest truth. Yet for those on the receiving end, it feels like betrayal. His emotional world mirrors this pattern of flight. When an idea initially captures his imagination, his enthusiasm is contagious. He speaks with bright eyes and animated gestures, framing every detail in iodine-burning clarity, as if he has already crossed the boundary from concept to reality. But the deeper the relationship of plan to action must grow, the more he retreats. He withdraws into silence, or worse, vanishes entirely, leaving collaborators and loved ones perched on the edge of expectation. They wait for his return, haunted by the memory of his initial brilliance, unsure whether that person will ever re-emerge. Romantic relationships, in particular, suffer the brunt of his shadow. At the outset, he is intensely present, gift-bearing, attentive, poetic in his declarations of love. Partners feel seen, admired, understood. He showers them with affection, framing each moment as a prelude to the great love story he envisions. Yet, when the relationship demands depth, reducing a partner to family, discussing joint finances, planning long-term commitments, he recoils. Suddenly, the romance must pause, for he is uncertain or needs space. The partner is left holding memories of sumptuous promise, only to discover that the emotional safety net has vanished. The result is heartbreak, confusion, self-doubt. Friends and colleagues also feel the whiplash of his inconstancy. One day, he is the life of the brainstorming session, a fount of novel solutions that electrify the group. The next, he is conspicuously absent, a ghost in the system whose name is missing from the email thread. When confronted, he weaves a narrative of overcommitment and unavailable timing, positioning himself as a martyr to principle. Meanwhile, The unanswered questions and stalled initiatives accumulate, poisoning goodwill and eroding trust. Underpinning this behavior is fear of failing to meet expectations. Fear of feeling ordinary. Fear of being held back by the mundane. He equates adulthood with bland uniformity, believing that to embrace responsibility is to surrender his unique spark. Instead, he equates freedom with dispersal, scattering his energies to avoid the risk that objective reality poses to his idealized self-image. This self-image depends on the possibility of greatness, not its demonstration. If he never completes anything, he can never be proven mistaken. Yet the cost of perpetual escape is high. Each abandoned project, each broken promise, leaves invisible scars on his relationships. Loved ones adjust their trust levels downward, bracing themselves against the next disappointment. Collaborators hesitate to invest time or resources, wary of his track record of unfulfilled commitments. Partners build emotional walls, preparing for the inevitable withdrawal. The very charisma that once drew people in shifts into a source of wariness. What once felt like thrilling possibility becomes a warning sign. Here is someone who will enchant you, then leave you stranded. Even his self-worth suffers. The initial high of a new idea transforms quickly into the low of unkept promises. Each cycle reinforces a sense of inadequacy. The louder his ambitions, the deeper his shame when they remain unrealized. This shame, in turn, fuels more avoidance. It's better never to try than to try and fail. He constructs a feedback loop. Grand idea leads to flight, leads to shame, leads to avoidance, leads back to grand idea. He spins in a centrifugal pattern, ever circling the core of unmastered fear. This dance with avoidance can seem hopeless, but it hides a hidden invitation. Jung taught that acknowledging the shadow is the first step toward transformation. The pure shadow of escape need not be a life sentence. It can become a bellwether, signaling where integration is most urgently required. When he begins to notice the pattern, when the hollow ache of another abandoned promise becomes louder than the allure of a new one, he stands at a crossroads. He can choose to remain ensnared in the cycle of almosts, or he can face the reality of his fear and dare to root himself. Rooting himself means doing the unglamorous work he has always avoided. It means responding to that long overdue email, scheduling the consult, writing the first draft, paying the bill, showing up for dinner, honoring the deadline. These are small acts, but they build neural pathways of reliability and self-trust. Each act of follow-through becomes evidence that he can be counted on, not just by others, but by himself. Gradually, the fear of failure loses its potency, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of incremental progress. True, this path demands pain. The first time he commits and then confronts genuine difficulty, he will want to run. He may feel trapped, suffocated by the responsibilities he once loathed. Yet with each challenge mastered, each project completed, each relationship deepened, he accrues a different kind of confidence. The confidence of proven competence. He learns that effort does not kill creativity. Rather, it frames it, giving it direction and impact. He discovers that responsibility does not cage him. It empowers him to shape the world he once only imagined. When the pure integrates his shadow of escape, he does not abandon his flight. Instead, he chooses his winds. He becomes the pilot of his own journey, charting courses with intention rather than drifting on whims. His enthusiasm remains, but it is anchored in purpose. His creativity burns brightly, fueled by the fuel of sustained effort. And he finds that when he finally delivers on his promises, the experience is richer and far more exhilarating than any ungrounded dream. In this integration lies redemption. The pure no longer needs to flee. He can stay present, face difficulty, and emerge on the other side with something real to show. He transforms from an eternal boy into an adult who harnesses youthful energy with mature will. The shadow of escape still flickers, a reminder of past fears, but it no longer commands his life. Instead, it serves as a teacher, guiding him toward the balanced harmony of imagination and action. And in that harmony, he discovers the true freedom he so long sought, not the illusion of flight without landing, but the power to soar and touch ground with equal grace. The devouring mother behind every man trapped in endless possibility. There often stands a figure of care and devotion, an overprotective presence that cushions him from failure and consequence. In Jungian terms, this is the archetypal great mother, who in her nurturing impulse can inadvertently devour the very autonomy she intends to foster. For the pure Eternus, this maternal force, whether embodied by a literal parent, a partner, or a social circle, becomes the soft cocoon that prevents him from spreading his own wings. In her shadow, the eternal boy remains forever small. At first, her protective embrace is a welcome comfort. She smooths out the wrinkles of life before he even notices them, fields his demands for encouragement, and provides a safety net under every tentative idea. When he says, "I'm not sure I can do it," she counters, "Of course you can, just let me handle that for you." When he misses a crucial deadline, she quietly pays the overdue bill. When he abandons a promising project, she consoles him with reminders of his brilliance. To the outside observer, her devotion seems selfless, but her interventions leave him insulated from reality's friction, shielding him from the very lessons that confrontation and consequence would teach. As this dynamic strengthens, the pure begins to rely on his caretaker's interventions as a substitute for personal effort. He stops learning how to manage his own tasks and emotions, for why should he? He can always call on her to smooth the way. The mother, in turn, becomes ever more vigilant. She monitors every contract, tracks every appointment, and prepares contingency plans for every possible obstacle. Her love is boundless, but it is also suffocating. She unwittingly reinforces his pattern of escape, ensuring that he never faces the discomfort of self-sufficiency. This symbiotic relationship can take many forms. In some families, the mother who never let her son fail in childhood, continues the habit into his adulthood, paying his rent, fielding his paperwork, negotiating his conflicts. In others, the pure's partner assumes the maternal role, drawn into a cycle of caretaking that masquerades as love. She enthusiastically champions his creative endeavors, taking charge of logistics so he can remain inspired. Friends and mentors sometimes join in, offering networks of support that inadvertently legitimize his dependency. Together, they form a protective circle that looks like empowerment but functions as exile from the real world. Within this cocoon, the pure sphere of failure finds fertile ground. He hears no firm blowback when he disappoints, for the mother figure intervenes swiftly. Never needs to confront the sting of rejection, the embarrassment of arrears, or the frustration of an unmet goal. Instead, he learns to view responsibility as something someone else will always handle. Over time, he loses the muscles of accountability, the tenacity required to endure setbacks, and the courage to face the unknown without a safety harness. Yet, beneath the surface of this protected existence simmers a deeper unrest. The pure senses, often unconsciously, that something vital is missing. He feels the lack of ownership over his own life, the eerie emptiness that follows every maternal rescue. He may articulate this as boredom or wanderlust, but the truth runs deeper. He has never risked stakes substantial enough to forge an adult identity. His reservoir of self-esteem, once propped up by borrowed confidence, begins to dry. He feels hollow beneath the veneer of support, as though he is an actor playing at greatness rather than an author living it. Moments of crisis eventually surface. Perhaps a bill he assumed she would pay goes unpaid. Perhaps an authority figure refuses to interface with his caretaker. Or perhaps he encounters a situation so outside her protective radius that he must face the world alone. In that instant, the cocoon unravels, and he confronts the sheer expanse of his untested skills. Panic may seize him. He experiences disorientation, anxiety, and a sense of profound helplessness. This is the precipice of transformation or further retreat for the pure who dares to step forward. The path of individuation begins with acknowledging the mother's role in his stasis and his own complicity. He must recognize that her love, while genuine, has become a prison. To break free, he needs to mourn the loss of the childhood sanctuary she provided. This mourning is painful. It feels like betraying a guardian who sacrificed so much, like severing ties that once defined his identity. Yet without this rupture, he cannot claim the realm of adult possibility. The process of severance takes many forms. He might have a difficult conversation with his caretaker, setting boundaries and negotiating autonomy. He might choose to handle a project end-to-a-no delegation so that failure and success alike belong solely to him. He might establish financial independence, open his own accounts, and reconcile past debts. In relationships, he learns to negotiate needs and limits, rather than defaulting to passive dependence. Each boundary he creates is an act of self-ownership, chipping away at the maternal hold and building his own internal structure. This break is seldom graceful. The mother figure may react with bewilderment, guilt, or even anger. She may accuse him of ingratitude or abandonment, interpreting his requests for space as rejection. This, too, is part of the trial by fire. Enduring the emotional fallout is a test of his new stamina. If he shrinks back at the first gust of discomfort, the cocoon will reform and the cycle will continue. But if he holds firm, he affirms. I appreciate all you've done, but I need to do this myself. He plants a flag for his nascent autonomy. Over time, as he practices these boundary-setting exercises, the puer begins to forge an adult psyche that includes the child within. A larger whole. He no longer rejects maternal care outright. He integrates it as one part of a balanced life. K retains the voice of encouragement, his own inner cheerleader, while inviting in the voice of discipline, structure, and accountability. He learns that love need not entail rescue, that real care can honor autonomy, and that relationships grow stronger when each person stands on their own feet as his independence blossoms. He discovers previously untapped wells of creativity and resilience. He realizes that failure, once so terrifying, is now a stepping stone to growth. When a project falters, he no longer experiences shame, for he has learned to navigate disappointment with grace. Instead of fleeing, he asks, "What can I learn?" His setbacks become data points. His unfinished beginnings become blueprints for refinement. In giving up reliance on his caretaker, he gains something infinitely richer, confidence in his own capacity. The mother figure, too, undergoes transformation. No longer needed as sole caretaker, she learns to recalibrate her role, moving from protective rescuer to supportive ally. She experiences the joy of witnessing his self-reliance and the pride of sharing in his victories rather than compensating for his defeats. The bond between them evolves from one of dependency to one of mutual respect and heartfelt collaboration. In the end, the devouring mother archetype, once a source of stasis, becomes a touchstone of integration. The pure carries within him both the creative spark of the eternal boy and the anchor of the mature man. He blends the warmth of maternal care with the fire of self-determination. No longer trapped in the safety of the psychic womb, he stands fully alive in the world, resilient, and ready to build the extraordinary life he once only imagined. The path to true freedom, the turning point, arrives not with fanfare, but with a quiet ache. One morning, he wakes to the hollow echo of unkept promises and abandoned dreams. The adrenaline of possibility no longer sustains him. The exhilaration has faded into emptiness. He recognizes, with a pang, that the price of perpetual postponement is a life half-lived, a tapestry of beginnings with no threads woven to completion. In that moment of clarity, he stands at a crossroads. Continue the familiar cycle of escape or embrace the painful work of transformation. This path to true freedom begins with acknowledgement. He must see, unflinchingly, the ways he has avoided. Adulthood missed deadlines, broken vows, fleeting passions. He writes them down, not as confessions of failure, but as data points on a map that charts the landscape of his fear. Each entry never launched the podcast, left the manuscript unfinished. Withdrew from relationship becomes a signpost pointing toward where responsibility was evaded. By examining the mosaic of his avoidance, he gains insight into the patterns that have trapped him. Next comes mourning. He honors the loss of the boy who needed no boundaries. The fantasies that once sparkled with unrealized potential. In a solemn ritual, he releases the weight of what might have been, acknowledging the sting of regret. It is neither an act of self-flagellation nor of passive acceptance. It is the conscious letting go of illusions that have shackled him. Mourning is cathartic. As tears fall, so too does the residue of denial and self-delusion. In this cleansing, space opens for new beginnings grounded in reality rather than in hope alone, with the past acknowledged and mourned. He sets out to build his internal structure. He starts small, choosing one everyday task he has persistently avoided. Perhaps it is responding to that backlog of emails or setting a personal budget. He commits to clear, measurable actions, draft a response to each email by Friday. Track expenses daily for 1 month. These micro-deadlines feel trivial compared to grand visions, yet they carry immense symbolic weight. Each completed task becomes a brick in the foundation of his self-trust. He soon learns that consistency trumps intensity. A single hour of focused work each day accomplishes far more than sporadic all-night sessions fueled by bursts of inspiration. He adopts the mantra, show up, even when inspiration doesn't. On days when motivation wanes, he honors the commitment to just start, knowing that momentum often emerges through action itself. He disciplines himself to resist the siren call of distraction, installing simple rituals: a morning review of goals and end-of-day reflection to keep his course true. Accountability becomes his ally. He shares his goals with a trusted friend or mentor, someone who will ask for updates and celebrate milestones. This social contract adds gentle pressure and encourages follow-through. He discovers that vulnerability in admitting struggles does not diminish his stature. It humanizes him and strengthens relationships. He also adopts digital tools, calendars, project management apps, habit trackers to monitor his progress. These external scaffolds support the internal work, keeping tasks visible and deadlines tangible. As his small wins accumulate, confidence grows. He revisits one of his loftiest dreams, perhaps the manuscript gathering dust on a shelf, and approaches it methodically. He breaks it into chapters, assigns realistic deadlines, and schedules writing sessions into his calendar. When the first chapter is drafted, he feels both relief and exhilaration, proof that sustained effort yields results. He no longer waits for an inspirational muse. He relies on the structure he has built to guide him through creative valleys and peaks alike. Crucially, he reframes failure. No longer a verdict on his worth, mistakes become feedback. If a deadline is missed, he examines the cause of her ambition, poor time management, expected obstacles, and adjusts accordingly. He celebrates the lessons learned rather than wallowing in self-recrimination. This shift in mindset dissolves the paralyzing fear that once kept him adrift. He now knows that stumbling does not spell defeat. It signals an invitation to refine. His strategy, simultaneously, he cultivates presence. Mindfulness practices brief meditations, grounded breathing exercises, or simply pausing to feel his feet on the floor, anchor him in the reality of now. He notices the richness of the present moment, the hum of his computer, the taste of his morning coffee, the satisfying click of a completed task. These small awakenings remind him that life unfolds not in distant fantasies, but in the texture of each passing second. He also nurtures resilience, recognizing that setbacks are inevitable. He builds support systems to sustain him through tough stretches, peer groups of fellow creators, accountability partners, and mentors who have faced similar struggles. He invests in ongoing learning, reading books on productivity, attending workshops, and studying the habits of those who balance creativity with responsibility. Knowledge becomes both inspiration and instruction, equipping him to navigate challenges. With poise. Importantly, he honors the pure within rather than suppressing it. He carves out time for playful exploration, daydream breaks, sketching sessions, experiments in new mediums while anchoring these pursuits in realistic frames. He no longer chases every sparkle of possibility. He selects a few areas of genuine passion and allows himself to wander within their boundaries. In this way, the eternal spark becomes a guiding light rather than a distracting whirlwind. Relationships flourish as he stabilizes. Partners and friends feel the reliability they once doubted. He keeps his word, shows up consistently, and communicates honestly about his challenges. Trust, once frayed by broken promises, is rebuilt through steady actions. Loved ones, relieved of the burden of rescue, become collaborators and cheerleaders in his journey. The devouring mother figure, whether a parent or partner, steps back, proud to see him stand on his own feet, ready to support rather than rescue. Financial independence emerges as another pillar of freedom. He takes charge of his money, budgeting, saving, investing, no longer relying on others to bail him out of overdrafts. He recognizes that true autonomy includes the power to manage resources responsibly. This economic accountability mirrors his broader commitment to self-governance, reinforcing his identity as a capable adult. Over time, the accumulation of intentional actions transforms his life's landscape. Where there were once unfulfilled promises, there now stands completed projects and tangible results. His creative endeavors reach audiences, generate feedback, and fuel further growth. He experiences the profound satisfaction that arises from bringing ideas into form, witnessing the ripple effects of his contributions. This satisfaction eclipses the fleeting thrill of ungrounded dreaming, anchoring his motivation in purpose rather than in the lure of possibility alone. He realizes that the true freedom he sought was never the absence of limits, but the power to choose his commitments wisely. By binding himself to causes he deeply values, he unlocks a freedom of spirit grounded in authenticity and integrity. His life ceases to be a series of near misses. It becomes a coherent narrative of growth, creativity, and resilience. In this convergence of childlike wonder and adult fortitude, he integrates the pure and the mature self into a unified whole. The eternal boy still dances within him, igniting new visions, but now he is partnered with a dependable will that sees dreams through to fruition. Together, they transform possibility into reality, an act that embodies the true miracle of life, where imagination and action meet in a harmony more extraordinary than either could produce alone.